Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. You can sit right down there. Our guest is already in the studio. I had to take that quick commercial break because our computer froze up, but we are back live on the air. We have just a couple of quick messages from yesterday's program that I want to get to, and then we will join our guest with the important interview with Mayor Dan Mandel. Thanks for being here, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So first, we had probably 3 or 4 messages about our interview with Sheriff Allard yesterday, so I wanted to get to those because I always appreciate people reaching out. First one, very valid points this morning on yesterday's show. Giving such power to any one individual leans too far away from democracy. Our next, it's always about power and control. It's obviously they want the power to control the sheriff's department and ultimately the citizens that voted. One of your best interviews. Wow, listen to that. Well, until today. What a great and honorable man. We need more like him. Forcing the sheriff's office and other offices to pay for their own insurance will chum the water for predators and muddy the already cloudy political atmosphere. So thank you to those messages. One last message that we received that I didn't have time to put up on the screen. People are probably asking, if the FBI is targeting Trump supporters, if I wear a MAGA hat, send a contribution, text someone about Trump, will I be an FBI target? And there's a very good post about that in the New York Post that I'm going to get to later on in the program. So let's take another break and then we'll join our guest. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back if I can find the button. We're coming in strong this morning. Stay with us. To Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in the studio this morning, we have Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, I gotta move my camera a little bit there on you. We got to get you in there. That's my fault. How's the campaign going?
It's going excellent, really.
Yeah.
Going door to door, talking to a lot of people. Have a lot of support out there, which is good.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm really looking forward to getting reelected and doing another 4 years.
Yeah.
So.
And you've had great weather for it.
Yeah, definitely have.
Almost too nice.
Yeah, it's starting this upcoming week. It doesn't look so good.
Well, it doesn't seem like campaign season, does it?
No, it doesn't, and it's going by so fast. I mean,
it really
so
is.
Quickly. And of course, with my busy schedule, you got to make time to get out there. And matter of fact, when we get done here today, I'm going to be going out. Our first district council member that's running out there, and we're going to spend a few hours out there today, and then again on Monday. So.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, you say how quick it's going. It's a month tomorrow.
That's correct.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, early voting starts.
Who knows? 6 months ago.
Depending on what state you live in.
So you had a big debate the other
Yes.
night. How'd it go?
I thought I did very well. I got a lot of good feedback.
Oh, good.
The main issues we went over. The feedback I received was my opponent has no clue on any of the city issues.
Oh, okay.
And so.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of important, isn't it?
I would think so. I mean, he didn't even know the gun laws, for crying out loud.
Oh, really?
And his response was, it's a state issue, not a local issue. Well, the moderator said, well, yes, it is. Well, of course it is.
Yes, of course. So when you're campaigning or you see the debate, I'm sure they had people handing questions. What has been the biggest issues?
Some of the biggest issues, homelessness, of course.
Oh, of course, everywhere.
That's a problem throughout the country. And, how do you tackle that?
Mm-hmm.
And, we've tried a couple approaches, Frank. One is we're getting a new supportive housing built on Judson Street in the city of Elmira. Try to get these people into that type of setting so they're off the street, they're getting the drug, alcohol, and mental health treatment they need, and try to get them back into society as productive members. The problem is that a lot of these people don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to tell you what another big problem is: bail reform.
Of course.
Because a lot of these people are committing these crimes, whether it be petty larceny or harassment, and you arrest them, you give them an appearance ticket, they're still on the street, still drug and drinking. So that's the problem we're up against.
And bail reform, it doesn't matter who I have on the program. Bail reform seems to come up because, you can't, and I feel so bad for law enforcement because you keep arresting the same people and they're out on the streets before you can even finish the paperwork, for heaven's sakes.
And you're absolutely right. And you have the police doing their job. Mm-hmm. It backs up the courts because these people are not going to go to court.
Right.
And the warrants are just backing up. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a big problem for the criminal justice system. It's unconscionable that the state would even implement something like that.
No, and I mean, this is kind of a larger picture state, not just for you, but when you tie all these things together, bail reform, public safety, obviously a major issue, homelessness, there's no wonder why people are unfortunately leaving the state in droves.
Absolutely.
It's one bad decision out of Albany. Yeah, every single, I mean, I joke when I have the sheriffs on, they must be so nervous when Albany's in session.
Yeah. I'm sure. It's a one-party rule.
It is.
And this
That's
is
the
what
problem.
happens. I mean, it's basically ruining our state.
It is. You know, I want to talk about a couple of things that you've been doing recently. And one, I think just happened at the beginning of this week, which October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I was talking to our news reporter here, Josh, and he said that was a really nice event that you put on.
Yes.
I mean, nice is a weird word to use in that situation,
Right.
but it's about raising awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. People need to know what to do. There are people out there in abusive relationships, and they have to get out of those relationships. And the message is that seek help,
Yeah.
go to a shelter until we can get you permanent housing and get away from that abuser.
And you made an official proclamation. And is this new, the Purple Wreath dedication
Yeah,
ceremony?
it is. It actually was. Actually, the Stage family, with Kelly and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's nice.
We dedicated that.
And in a moment, because we were talking about public safety, I was looking at my notes here. I know that you're going to be involved in that rally on Saturday with Dr.
absolutely.
Coleman.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that in a moment. But let's talk about something really positive. And I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this, but the recent Small Town Charm.
Yes.
That's so great. America's best hometowns, and they were ranked. And who came in number one? But Elmira.
Elmira, New York, and Corning number 2.
I know.
And they use different metrics.
Yeah.
The one thing that stood out to me is that Elmira is a safe city.
Yeah.
They use FBI crime statistics. And as I tell people, Frank, Elmira is a very safe city. Our violent crime is mainly targeted.
Right.
We know who these
Unfortunately.
people are. Yeah, it is.
And that goes back to public safety, and law enforcement knows, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it must have felt good for you as the mayor to
absolutely.
see that come out.
That's a
A feather in your cap.
Absolutely.
I think that's the first time Elmira received it as you was mayor,
It's the
as far
first
as I
time
know.
ever, so I'm very, very happy about that for the city of Elmira.
And when we talk about goals and you're running for re-election,
Right.
what are some of the, we focus on negative so much. What are some of the positive things that you're seeing in Elmira?
Of course, we're seeing a lot of growth in our downtown area, a lot of building. We've had almost $200 million worth of investment in the city of Elmira, and a lot of that stemmed off of the $10 million DRI that was awarded right after I was elected. We kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Of course, Lecon was a big driver of that, and we still have more development going on. So that's a big thing, which is bringing in some more restaurants. We got a lot of different projects that are going to be happening in the city. So I think that's the biggest boom for Elmira right now.
And I will say, it seems like every time I go to Elmira, there's something new happening.
Yes.
And that's wonderful. So how long have you been mayor? I was trying to think
8
about
years.
This. Is that right? Man, time flies. What has surprised you the most?
How busy I am. It's supposed to
Did
be
you
a
expect it?
part-time job. Just a lot of the workings of the city government and how to be an effective mayor and how much you got to be involved. So that kind of surprised me. I truly enjoy that. So.
Yeah. Do you find, because this seems to be a common thing that we talk about a lot on this program, do you find that people are aware of what's going on when it comes to what's happening in the mayor's office? Are they actively talking to you about questions, comments, concerns, those type of things?
Yeah, they do. I get emails and so forth. Some residents, they don't know. And
Sure.
when I hit the campaign trail, I can explain that. My mailer explained what's going on in the city right now. But I interact with a lot of people. As you know, I go to a lot of different events.
Yeah.
And I'm out there in the community.
Yeah. So what are you get 4 more years if you're reelected? What are some of your goals for those 4 years?
The biggest goal right now is getting the South Side
Yeah.
some attention because it's basically been neglected for a couple decades. And so we did apply for another DRI for
Okay.
the South Side. And what we're going to look at doing with that is a federally qualified health center, which is desperately needed. It would take the pressure off of Arnett.
Yes.
And bring these people into that setting so they're not always in the emergency room. So that's part of it. And the other part of it's going to be some building and home rehab on the South Side, plus some attention to Brand Park.
That's great. So let's talk about Coleman's Rally.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I think it's going to be a fun one.
It's going to be great, and I think it's well overdue because
Yeah.
of all the negativity with our men and women in uniform.
I know.
I mean, they need our support. They're members of our community. They keep us safe. I mean, Frank, the first person we call when there's trouble is a police officer.
I know.
You know?
And the media's coverage on police, there's no it's not a shock that morale is down.
Yeah.
There's not a shock why they're having trouble with retention and recruitment, because not only do you have the media constantly attacking, you have politicians constantly attacking. It's got to be a tough place to work, and that's why I have more respect for them even than I did before, because they're playing through that, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very tough, and I do tell people, especially our officers and our staff for the EPD, we support them 150%.
Of course.
If you want to work for Elmira, you'll have the support of the council, myself. So,
Yeah.
but it's not happening in different communities, unfortunately.
No, it isn't. But looking at this rally again, it's tomorrow at Wisner Park from 1 to 2 p.m. Obviously, it's free, no tickets, anything like that. Talk about a who's who.
Yeah.
This is a star-studded lineup. Everybody's going to be there. I think and going back to getting active in your community, what a great opportunity if someone is maybe new to the area or wants to get involved, to talk to you, to talk to the sheriff, or when I have both sheriffs on, Schramm or Allard, it sometimes turns into like a job fair on the air. So if you're interested in joining the police or maybe corrections officer,
Yeah, well, we
that'd be
definitely need that. The
great.
county jail's way understaffed right now. So.
Do you find that overall there's a staffing problem?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Like, of course, at the county jail,
Yeah.
we're short a lot of officers over there. I'd say that because I still work there part time.
Yeah.
But they're short officers. EPD, we actually had to do a bonus to try to recruit a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's better now, but there is an issue, and the same with the sheriffs on the road patrol.
Yeah, and just in general, I know we'll have people in from the county talking on the program. It seems like everybody's looking for people to work.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
I wish I could put my finger on it, and I don't know. I don't know if it's because unemployment. I know the benefits aren't what they were during COVID.
No.
I think our unemployment rate right now is 3.9%.
Okay.
And there's jobs out there.
Yeah, I know.
So the bottom line is these people just don't want to work at this point.
Apparently, and they're good jobs too.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's what I find interesting. It's not, even minimum wage now is pretty
yeah,
great.
it's almost
but
$15
I know, but it's not even minimum. I mean, they're good benefits, things like that.
Oh, they are.
Now, corrections officers, again, it ties in with what we were talking about with law enforcement. There's been such a negativity. I think that could be one of the biggest.
There is, and there's a big problem with that. And then they enact these laws that basically give the inmates, it's
free
the
reign.
roosters watching the hen house.
I
and
know.
It's crazy. You can't discipline the inmates like you used to. It's not good.
No, and so that's in the jails, and then outside you have bail reform. You have, like we've talked about, and I found this so fascinating. I talked with Sheriff Schramm about it, and I believe Allard too. Now, because of the laws, these young people that are getting involved with crimes, knowing that they're not going to get in any kind of trouble.
Exactly, and you bring up a very good point, and I'll tell you, our last couple of incidents with gunfire were 16, 17-year-olds.
Unbelievable.
My first question, where are the parents?
Yeah, well, right.
Wow.
That is amazing, because I know there was an article out of the New York Post, and it was out of New York City, but these kids are robbing bars, and then when the cops are called, they say, you're not going to be able to do anything to me. How demoralizing is that for the police?
It is.
But also, it's a trend that, unfortunately, as you mentioned, is hitting our area.
Yeah, it is, and we see it more and more. When they did raise the age, 16 and 17 years old, you can no longer treat them like an adult.
No.
That's a problem. This is where most of our violent crimes are coming from.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess asking you the toughest question in the world, how do we fix this public safety issue when we have these boneheaded decisions coming out of Albany?
Basically, you got to get a change in Albany.
That's what
Let's
it
face
is.
it. I mean, absolutely. You got to get rid of the bail reform. Go back to the way bail was set. Give the judges the power to set bail.
Yes.
Things like that. Give the correction officers the tools they need to do their job.
Yeah.
Get rid of all these things about not disciplining inmates. So
Yeah, and
that's a
it's
start.
And it's interesting because, and I brought this up probably too much, but there was an article that Hochul recognizes that public safety is an issue, but only because it costs the Democrats the majority in the House. So it's not about your safety or my safety in the community. It's about how can we do a PR campaign to make it look better than it is.
Exactly, and that's what they do. Okay,
Yes.
it's smoke and mirrors. I mean, just look at Biden and the border right now. It's getting off topic a little bit.
Yeah, no,
And
no.
now he's changing his mind. He wants to put up a wall.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
If that isn't, so it's just all about for them power and getting elected. Where
Well, that's it.
the Republican Party wants to do the right thing, support. We're becoming the working people's party.
Oh, 100%. And there's a reason why Joe Biden, we are getting on a tangent, but there's a reason why Joe Biden had to go to the picket line.
Yeah.
That should be, the last couple of days filler photo, but he's really concerned. When
Should be.
when you're concerned about getting union support as a Democrat, you guys have been doing something wrong.
Absolutely.
But people are waking up and saying, "Wait, you come and talk to us every 4 years, but then you don't do anything."
Yeah.
So it's all interesting. I didn't mean to get on national politics with you, but so we've been talking about positive stuff. We're just about out of time, but Anything else you'd like to say to voters before they head into the booth?
Yeah, on November 7th or even early voting, October 28th,
Yep.
please vote for Dan Mandel and our slate of candidates. And we're looking forward to keeping Elmira a Republican town.
Yeah, that's right.
And keep pushing fiscal responsibility, being tough on crime and keeping citizens safe and more development.
And you mentioned the slate of candidates. Got a good lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty confident.
Oh, good.
So
Good. Well, thanks for being on the
yeah.
show.
Hey, Frank, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Frank Hickam. It's something about Friday. We just always feel like we're moving fast. I can't thank the Elmira mayor enough, Dan Mandel. You'll recall that I brought up that story, and I should have probably highlighted it a little bit more when we were talking with the mayor. But the small town charm servant, Elmira received number 1. They ranked on a bunch of various issues, and we brought up at the time in Corning number 2. So, like I said, a feather in his cap, and we appreciate him being on the program. And he will be at Wisner Park tomorrow for the Support the Police rally from 1 to 2, put on by Dr. Coleman, who was on earlier in the week. But yes, Fridays we always are very busy. We received a comment during that interview, end bail reform. I couldn't agree more. It's obviously, I didn't mean to get on a tangent on the national stuff with the mayor and the statewide as well. But boy, it's been disastrous. There's no other way to look at it. And the fact that Hochul acknowledges it behind closed doors, but not to help you, the number 1 job of the government, to protect you, the citizen. It's about the optics, making them look good. So thank you again to Dan Mandel. Election is coming up fast, isn't it? We're going to, as you know, or as you can maybe speculate, it is going to be very, very busy for this next month on the program, so you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to have candidates on. And by the way, I know I always say it, but please feel free to reach out. If you are running for office or you know someone that you say, I'd like to learn more about this candidate, just contact me. I will do the best that I can to get them on the program. And if you are the candidate, it'll be super simple. Just reach out and we'll have a conversation and we'll get something scheduled. But I will warn you, it is filling up fast. What originally got me in to watching football was this gentleman here who we lost yesterday. Dick Butkus, one of the fiercest players in NFL history. Now, he was ahead of my time, but watching his old clip. So that's why I mention it. But I know many of you are football fans. And like I said, I'm getting back into it, doing the fantasy football stuff a little bit and the like. So it is fun to watch. It's a nice distraction on a Sunday and watch it. So watching it yesterday and seeing the remembrance of Dick Butkus just made me, it revigorated getting back into football. So anyway, enough about that. Thank you. You don't need to hear why I like football. I know you all like football, and you watch it. Okay, now let's talk about politics. How am I doing on time? I'm all over the place this morning. I'm doing good. Okay. How about this? There's so much to dissect here. 71% of Americans, according to this poll by studyfinds.org, don't trust the United States government to prevent doomsday. I've got to say I'm surprised that number's not higher. Has there ever been a point in your life where you thought, I bet you the government can save us from the apocalypse? I'm really confused by this. Anyway, U.S. politics continue to be a chaotic subject. And a new poll finds the majority of Americans are rapidly losing faith in their country's leaders. From the ousting of the Speaker of the House to the mounting controversies engulfing the current president and his predecessors. Over 7 in 10 people say there's no one they trust to save them from an end-of-the-world event. Such problems only push the so-called doomsday clock to tick closer to the end times. What a weird poll. Over half the poll, 55.8%, think doomsday will come in the form of a climate change-related catastrophe, while a third believe another virus will sweep the globe, and a quarter of respondents fear the start of World War III. And then how about this? These are the kind of people I would want to talk to. Another 7% are betting on an alien invasion, while the same number believe 2024 will finally be the year zombies walk the earth. Oh, and for our friends in Pennsylvania, after Arizona, the top 5 states with the least amount of trust in the government: Kansas, Alabama, and then Pennsylvania and Oregon. Was there ever a time in your life, I'll raise that question, that you actually believe that the government, as we see it today, as we see what's happening in the House, as we see what's happening in the White House, did you ever think they could somehow protect us from doing? I don't know. Weird poll, but something worth mentioning. We're jumping all over the place. And by the way, here's a question to get off of politics. I mentioned Dick Butkus was probably my favorite football player. I liked watching Johnny U as well. Again, I would watch the old reruns. And now, again, it's got me back in watching football. They get great coverage, and we've got a lot of it, obviously, here on Fox. So I'd highly recommend watching all of the games because it is a nice distraction from politics. I mentioned there was a time, this was probably, 6 years ago, where it just became too much of the politics. And I think some people realize, let's get a little bit away from that, shall we? And I feel that it has become that in the Bills. Fun watching the Bills. Whoever your favorite team is. But who was your favorite football player? Or who is your favorite football player? I'll read them on the air. Why not? We're just it's Friday. We never know what we're going to do here on Frankly Speaking. So we're going to take a short break. No, we're not. No, we're good. Okay. Let's talk about the House race. There is a really good, I'm shocked by this, as a matter of fact, a good piece at CNN about this, about what happened with Kevin McCarthy. Because there's a piece, I'm jumping around here, sorry. To the world, McCarthy's exit is just another example of U.S. disarray. This came out from dnyuz.com. And this is not the piece from CNN, so bear with me. We're going to lead it up to that. The institutions that were already strained during Donald J. Trump's presidency now face a series of profound stress tests. Can the courts maintain public faith and deal credibly with a former president running for his old job who has been accused of so many crimes it's hard to keep track? Running for his old job. I think that's interesting to downplay it and not say that the leader of the Republican primary when it comes to the poll, clear favorite. But anyway, can Congress get its act together enough to simply pick a leader, much less address vexing issues like immigration, spending, climate change, and gun violence? Can the presidency, in the hands of an aging, traditional politician like President Biden, be a tool to heal the wounds of society? So they're saying it's sending a bad, and I mentioned this before on the program, that it's not good on the world stage to have that kind of, I'm not using the word chaos, but you get it. That's why, and we had many disagree. I've read them on the air. You can disagree with me. I did not support Matt Gaetz' move in this scenario. And I do. I think there was a really good point that why is it always said there's never a good time to cut spending? That's very true. I could not agree with that more. That's always said. Well, now we can't do it now. We can't do it now. But boy, this prime example of what I would really say was a bad time to do it. But anyway, when we come back from break, we're going to mention this piece by Patrick Brown at CNN. And it is the House Speaker was ousted because Democrats put party above country. And I think you're going to find that very interesting later on in the program. We are going to mention what the one viewer sent in about the FBI turning Trump supporters into terrorists, essentially. So all that and much more. We're just getting started. We're about halfway through. And it's going fast. We've covered a lot, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So Patrick T. Brown somehow got this article on CNN. And it is, well, there's two different headlines. I'm not sure why CNN does that. This says how Democrats just helped the MAGA wing of Congress. But when I printed it out, it's the House Speaker was ousted because Democrats put party above country. So his argument, Patrick T. Brown, says on Tuesday, Democrats in the House decided with 8 Republicans that they would side with 8 Republicans who voted to remove Representative Kevin McCarthy from the speakership. Instead of siding with stability, Democrats chose to double down on partisanship. For the party that has talked repeatedly about wanting to restore, quote, norms of good government, it was a cynical display of short-term political gain at the expense of the long-term functioning of our political institutions. And we've talked about this. It's on both sides. So you've got Matt Gaetz and his 8 Republicans, him and 7 Republicans, were upset that McCarthy worked with Democrats to get the continuing resolution. So in retaliation, he worked with Democrats to kick out McCarthy from the speakership. And on the other side, Democrats saying we have to compromise. We have to have these discussions. We have to keep the government open or it's the end of the world as we know it. So Kevin McCarthy works with them to get that done. And how do they pay him back? By voting with Matt Gaetz to boot Kevin McCarthy. Gaetz' move gave Democrats an opportunity to reward McCarthy for having kept the government open. 209 Democrats joined 126 Republicans to pass the last-minute deal that averted a shutdown. And many were initially cautiously open to securing a deal to save McCarthy's speakership. Quote, I think if he's willing to work together on things, a member of Congress said at the time, there will be enough of us to protect him. Well, there wasn't. House Democrats acted as enablers for those Republicans who sought McCarthy's ouster, effectively helping to punish him for compromising on keeping the government open. This will just lead to other people in leadership positions that will not give an inch, that will not compromise. That's the message that was sent by Democrats in this instance. Democrats didn't have to like McCarthy or approve of everything he's done to understand that his ouster only empowers the, quote, MAGA Republicans decried by Biden and opposed by AOC as one of the gravest threats facing the country. Again, if you're just joining us, this is Patrick Brown at CNN, of all places. A little bipartisanship could have thwarted their attempt, meaning Matt Gaetz. Democrats didn't even have to affirmatively support McCarthy. Simply voting present would have lowered the threshold necessary for the former speaker to maintain a majority. Instead, Democrats helped those that they see as extreme MAGA Republicans while allowing the House to be thrown into chaos amid the fraught prospect of choosing a new speaker as the clock ticks to the next government shutdown. Yeah, it was a short-term win for them, they thought, politically, because they thought polling will show that this will benefit Democrats. But it wasn't about, what was good for the House, what was good for the country, at least from their perspective. This compromise is working together, which normally seems to be a one-way street. Republicans seem to compromise a lot more. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the reward for working with the Democrats was to have the Democrat side with Matt Gaetz to get rid of McCarthy. Okay. Trump yesterday endorsed Jim Jordan for Speaker of the House. A lot of people, I think the betting favorite was Steve Scalise, because those two are running, as of now, I think those are the only two that I've seen, Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan. But former President Donald Trump said Congressman Jim Jordan has been a star long before making his very successful journey to Washington, D.C., representing Ohio's 4th Congressional District. Respected by all, he is now chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. As president, I had the honor of presenting Jim with our country's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So much is learned from sports, and Jim was a master, and he went on to praise his wrestling career. He is strong on crime, borders, our military, vets, Second Amendment. Jim and his wife Polly and family are outstanding. He will be a great Speaker of the House, has my complete and total endorsement. Now, the former president also said he would be willing to serve as the House Speaker, but for up to about 90 days, and only do it if it's necessary to unite Republicans. I know I'm throwing a lot at you there, but so he endorsed Jim Jordan, but he did say he'd be willing. He was on Fox News Digital. He did say he would be willing to serve as Speaker, but only for 90 days while we try to unify the party. I've been asked to speak as a unifier because I have so many friends in Congress. If they don't get the vote, they have asked me if I would consider taking the speakership until they get somebody longer term because I'm running for president. They have asked me if I would take it for a short period of time for the party until they come to a conclusion. I'm not doing it because I want to. I will do it if necessary, should they not be able to make their decision. Now, Democrats next week are going to meet and try and nominate Hakeem Jeffries. I think I mentioned this earlier in the week that this was a possibility. Yes, a huge long shot that they'll get it, but who knows? Who knows anymore, right? But the conference is set to meet on Tuesday to cement the New York Democratic leader as their pick to lead the House after this week's vote to oust McCarthy. So if you haven't followed this in the past, this is not a surprise. You know, when McCarthy was originally up for vote, there were Democrats that got votes. That's how it works. But they are going to nominate him next week, and it would just take a few Republicans, I suppose, if they wanted to, I don't know, send a message. Because there's actually a piece at New Republican that said it's a long shot, saying, sure, it's a long shot. But in a House where the unprecedented keeps happening, who's to rule out anything? Yeah, very true. So for now, the most likely scenario is that come next week, Jeffries will have more votes for Speaker than any Republican, but not enough to be elected, which means the best move for House Democrats is to bring popcorn to the floor and watch the MAGA bros running the House GOP destroy themselves in a political battle for Speaker with no end in sight. And that will be interesting when people start getting nominated, how long that process will take, because we saw how long it took for McCarthy. So how long that'll take and how long there won't be that Speaker. So that, you know, we've got the continuing resolution set to expire in a little while, but you also have the impeachment inquiry, so many things going on that are essentially in limbo right now, waiting for a Speaker. So, and the media will have a field day with that to attack Republicans. But let's take a short break. When we come back, a lot more to get to. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. So often we talk about some of the things that would normally bring down a candidate that somehow prove beneficial to former President Trump. For instance, the lawsuits, being indicted. What did he say at the one rally that I mentioned so often, that he's one indictment away from the White House? But those type of instances play right into his, this sounds negative, but narrative. I don't mean that to sound negative, but into his talking points, right? That they're out to get me, those type of things. And then you have things like this. Hillary Clinton calling for the formal deprogramming of MAGA cult members. Now, she was on CNN. It was an exclusive on CNN, saying that she believes Trump is likely the GOP 2024 nominee, but Biden can still beat him. That's according to Hillary Clinton, if anybody knows about who can win in a presidential race. Anyway, and sadly, she said, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil action and criminal actions. When do they break with him? You know, because at some point, you know, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members. But something needs to happen. So when you hear rhetoric like that, doesn't that just create more people that take a hardline stance for Trump? You know, we talked about it with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski quite a while ago, but I thought he had such a great point. That's why I mention it so frequently, which is you may not like Donald Trump. You may not like his tweets. You may not like some of the things that he says, but you really don't like the idea of the government telling you what to do, the deep state going after someone that you have a right to support. This is the same type of thing. This kind of rhetoric drives more people to the former president, because we learned, and I mentioned the comment that we received right before we went on the air about this, James Bovard at the New York Post asked the question, is the FBI turning Trump supporters into terrorist targets? Sorry, you may be able to hear the street sweeper going in the background. I apologize. But that's what happens when you're live from Market Street in the Hesselson studio. So Donald Trump's supporters are now in the FBI terrorist investigation crosshairs, according to a new report in Newsweek. The agency has created a new category of extremists that it seeks to track and counter: Donald Trump's army of MAGA followers. It's targeting strident Republicans with some of the same counterterrorism methods honed to fight Al-Qaeda. This coming from the New York Post, but originally reported on by Newsweek. Federal bureaucrats heaved together a bunch of letters to come up with an acronym called AGAVE, AGAAVE, which stands for Anti-Government, Anti-Authority, Violent Extremists, which looks like a typo for a sugar substitute, says James Bovard. But the great majority of the FBI's current, quote, anti-government investigations are of, no surprise, Trump supporters. The FBI recently vastly expanded the supposed AGAVE peril by broadening suspicions from furtherance of ideological agendas to furtherance of political and or social agendas. Anyone who has an agenda different from Team Biden's could be in this system. The Biden administration is vilifying anti-government opinions. At the same time, judges are exposing federal crimes. Federal court decisions in July and September condemned the Biden censorship regime, and those rulings were preceded by Supreme Court decisions striking down President Biden's student loan forgiveness scheme and vaccine mandate. But Team Biden still presumes anyone who suspects the feds are violating the Constitution is up to no good. Again, we're not going to have time to mention all of this, but I want to return to it after this break. But this is a great piece, again, by James Bovard from the New York Post. We'll get back to it when we come back. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox received, I think, a very good message during the break. They're all good. Please keep them coming in. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. But in hindsight, I think McCarthy's biggest mistake was giving the House a 6-week recess and not getting all the budget work completed. Hopefully the new speaker can wrangle all the GOP members into supporting fiscal sanity. That is a very, very good point, a very astute point. So thank you for that. So back to this piece about, is the FBI turning Trump supporters into terrorist targets? So it says those assessments could prove perilous because the official demand for terrorists far exceeds the domestic supply. A top federal official told Newsweek last year, quote, "We become too prone," this is very important, "we become too prone to labeling anything we don't like as extremism, and then any extremist as a terrorist." And this has been a long time coming. They tried to compare Trump supporters to terrorists way back. And that kind of, well, not only does it create more of a divide, but rhetoric like that's scary to throw around. It should not be something that you take lightly, saying terrorism. FBI whistleblower Steve Friend complained of current FBI leadership saying, quote, "There is the belief that half the country are domestic terrorists, and we can't have a conversation with them. There's a fundamental belief that unless you are voicing what we agree, you are the enemy." And not just, I would add, not just the enemy, a terrorist. Did the Biden administration secretly want Newsweek to vindicate the fears of legions of Trump supporters? Great point. This just fans the flames of a belief that was already out there. As James Bovard said, the more paranoid Trump supporters become, the easier it will be for Team Biden to portray them as public menaces. Biden's war on extremism could become a self-fulfilling prophecy that destroys American political legitimacy. An official in the Office of Director of National Intelligence lamented, quote, "So we have the president increasing his own inflammatory rhetoric, which leads Donald Trump and the Republicans to do the same, and of course, the media follows suit." Biden is exempt from official suspicion, even when he denounced Republicans as fascists who want to destroy democracy. Yet if Republicans sound equally overheated, Biden's FBI has pretext to target them. Wow. Well, that was a piece by Newsweek and that I just mentioned by James Bovard at the New York Post referencing it. We've got to take one last short break, and then we will be back to wrap things up here on Frankly Speaking. Please stay with us. Boy, where does the time go? What a fun show. Thank you to everybody who has been reaching out throughout the program and late yesterday and early this morning. Couple of stories that we can't get to because we were out of time, but despite Biden's border wall flip-flop, it's too late to mend fences. He's playing is so weird. Well, we have no choice is one excuse that he's using. It's really interesting. Biden's wall 180 is another deceptive stunt. 3 years and roughly 7 million illegal migrants after candidate Joe Biden vowed, quote, "There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. We finally get a, never mind." Well, kind of. The Department of Homeland Security is moving to build 20 miles of wall, a move revealed by notice late Thursday in the Federal Register that they're waiving various legal requirements to get it done. Anyway, we just don't have time for this. Democrats seeing sense on the border crisis. Welcome to the grand old party, says Joe Borelli. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel for being our guest. Thank you to all our guests this week. We had a really important week, very informative week here, and that's normally the case, but it will be as well next week. We're already booked next week, and really coming up to the election, it's getting trickier and trickier to find openings. So if you know a candidate you'd like to have on the program, please contact me at the number on the bottom of your screen. But again, thank you to Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel for being our guest. He will be, with many other local community leaders, will be at the Unity in the Community Support the Police rally. We talked with Dr. Coleman earlier in the week about this, and actually we talked with Sheriff Allard yesterday. He will be there as well. Sheriff Schramm. The list goes on and on. I don't have time to read them all, but that is tomorrow at Wisner Park from 1 to 2 p.m. It's free, no tickets required, and of course it's open to the public. Well, have a fun, safe weekend. I am looking forward to Monday already. We're going to hit the ground running. It's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in every weekday morning starting at 7 for Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll see you then.